They're looking for that as well. The link to it, because it's on share file, expired.
Oh, okay.
And so all of them expired. So anyway, I asked for a good copy and I think it just arrived.
Okay.
Yeah, here it is, isn't it?
Bob, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yep.
There's a pen right here.
Mr. President, I believe we're ready to go.
All right, it is now 6:31. We will commence the Harupa Area Recreation Park District Board meeting. Mr. Owen, can you refer on the closed session?
Yes, I'd be happy to. In closed session, the Board of Directors conferred with the General Manager concerning the property shown on the closed session portion of the agenda. And that concludes the report.
Perfect. Mr. Godinez, can you lead us in the pledge of
Yes. Please stand. Put your hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 1, can we do roll call?
Yes. Joe Johnson, Division 1. Here. Excuse me, Division 2, Jose Luis Godinez.
Present.
Division 3, Rebecca Ladorte Byrne.
Present.
Division 4, Edgar Castellan.
Present.
Division 5, Ross Leisha.
Here.
Do we have any presentations or recommendations today? Do we have any comments?
No, I have not with people.
Okay. All right, item 4, consent calendar. Does anyone want to pull anything?
Mr. President, if I just make one note, in the financials that were uploaded in regards to the financials and the check register, the agenda was published with the financial report listed twice, and it's been updated to show the correct documents attachments.
Perfect. All right.
So I move to approve the consent calendar with those changes.
Motion in a second. All approved?
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0. Now we'll move on to item 5.1, master plan survey findings presentation.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. We have with us our consultants from Barry Dunn, who's working on our master plan for us. They are here to present to you the findings from the survey that was completed as part of the master plan process. As you guys are aware, this was something we started roughly 6 months ago. And we're, I think, moving at a steady pace, keeping our timeline for the most part. We had a presentation last night. I know a couple of you were able to attend. This is a form of that presentation. Some of the information, how we got to where we're at right now, you guys are very well aware of. So we've put that down. In talking, I think we want to have pretty much an open conversation. Less of a formal presentation and discussion on the information being provided. It's a lot of data. And I want to stress, just like we did last night, no decisions have been made yet. Ultimately, the consultants are looking for some guidance, as well as myself, from the board. If we're on the right path, if there's any information that just is blaringly sticking out to you guys that this doesn't represent our community, or this is wrong, or we need to relook at this. Now is the time to bring that up, because from here we'll be rolling into basically starting to put the document together. So with that, I'm gonna turn it over. And let me turn your slideshow on.
While we're getting started with that, good evening. I'm Jeff Milkus. I'm the project manager for your master plan. By way of introduction, just to so you can kind of remember and recall, because it's been a while since we've been here. I come out of a suburb of Portland, Oregon. I was a director of a Parks and Recreation agency for some time, and spent I think 38 years in the field until it was clear that this was going to be a better path for me. So I'll turn it over to my colleagues who will introduce themselves as well.
Hello, my name is Tom Deal. I'm a manager with Barry Dunn. On this project, I'm what we call our engagement manager. So I'm here to support Jeff, look at quality control. I've been involved in pretty much the whole process. This is at least my third, if not fourth time here, I think. Very happy to be working with you. I've spent my whole career in athletics, recreation, parks and recreation, running departments and so forth. I've done all of the different jobs and I've been a consultant for about 8 years and done about 130 projects similar to this, and very happy to be here. And I work a lot with Jeff and Pat. Pat, you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Pat O'Toole. I'm also manager with Barry Dunn. I reside in Wards, Kansas, just outside Kansas City on the Kansas side. My background is first 20 years of my professional career. I was a director and assistant director in 4 different agencies of different sizes, different types, 4 different states in the Midwest. And I myself have been consulting since 1995. So I'm approaching about 47 years in the industry. I don't even know how many projects I've done, but I'm here to help these guys.
Okay, and Pat has come with us this visit, really to help us focus on the assessing your facilities, your community centers and the like. And we've been visiting, we've been out in the facilities, been out in the parks this week. And really, I think this has been a real fruitful opportunity for us. So what we want to do tonight is just to provide you with some of, and I use the word some, kind of conservatively, but some of the data that we've learned, what we've learned to date from different modes of inquiry. So we've done a survey, we've done public engagement, we've done some digital engagement online, we've spoken to people, we've inventoried things in the parks. There's just a whole lot of different things. And what we're going to do, for those of you that were present last night with the public meeting, the slides are the same, but less of them. Well, what we want to do tonight with you is kind of give you the nuts and the bolts so that we can have some fruitful discussions. My hope is that I can leave with input, guidance, some of your priorities, and to help confirm that what we've learned is it really would be what your thoughts and expectations would be. So I'm going to jump right into it. We looked at the profile of the community. What we wanted to do was to understand who is it that you are serving and how many and such. And the important thing from this slide is that in 2010, you had 105,000 people, and we project by 2028, you'll have 123, which over that 20-some-year period is pretty significant. 10, 28. Anyway, we asked some questions within the census data. What's the population look like? And the thing to report to you is that the adult and senior populations are growing, and your youth populations really are moving backwards just a little bit in terms of the projections. That doesn't mean that they're significant enough where you need to make major changes to your youth sports programs and things like that. But be aware that those are the trends that are happening. We looked at household income and households in poverty, and our conclusion is median income is higher than California and the United States. Not too surprised with that, but households in poverty still almost 10%, which is a significant number, but much less than, or a little bit less than California and somewhat less than the United States. I suspect that this is probably a tad bit understated. There's probably folks in the community who may not have participated with the census, who people don't always give us their income information exactly the way that it be. But anyway, further inquiry would go through and through free and reduced meal percentages, things like that. So we looked at the number of individuals that had disabilities, and what we've learned is that you've got 28% of folks within your community that have some form of either a physical or cognitive disability. What sticks out to me isn't that California and the United States both lag behind that, but that 28% for the most part is a significant number of people. And so to the extent that your programming can reflect things like all-inclusive playgrounds and inclusive recreation activities. And when we've done or are in the process of doing your facility assessment, for this reason, we brought a subconsultant who specializes in access and access to facilities. And he's been out and around the community centers today and will be working tomorrow to give us deficiencies compared to what the ADA would suggest that you should have within your facilities. Can folks with a wheelchair or on crutches or what have you, or folks who are a little bit older, can they get from the parking lot into the facility? Are the ramps appropriate? Are the parking spaces, are there sufficient ones where folks don't have to walk a long distance that may have individuals with disabilities in their family? So we looked at the racial kind of background here, and what we found is in 2010, you moved from 53 to 24% of people who are of white background. And the reason that we focus there is that everyone else then qualifies as individuals of diverse background. So really the diversity in your community is double during the study period, what we project. And what's missing there are individuals of Hispanic background, because of course, folks of Hispanic background can be white race, black race, Islander, different races, more than one. So the important thing here in this slide is the very last sentence. You moved during that period from 64 to 71% individuals of Hispanic background. So significant, and when we see that, we tested it in terms of other survey opportunities. We wanted to know if people, when they tell us that they feel welcome in the parks, and if individuals of Hispanic background, are they around the same kinds of feelings? Do folks there have the same priorities in terms of park amenities? And what we found is that there's very little difference between the two data sets when we broke it out. So we looked at trends to see what are people doing inside of the district, what kind of activities. We have literally pages worth of trends information that will be an appendix in the master plan. Tonight, I pulled out just one because we'd like to have some discussion about other things with you. Walking for exercise is the single largest participatory fitness activity in the district. And
Clarify, this is for adults.
for adults, that's right. Thank you. Yeah, absolutely for adults. Along that same regard, we looked at outdoor recreation participation for adults within the district for different kinds of outdoor recreation, everything from archery to rock climbing to backpacking to fishing and such. Note that the very top, hiking, is the top participatory. So what it tells us is that walking for pleasure, walking for exercise, hiking, trails are an important part of your community. So taking that in along with the engagement, we tested that in the survey, and we'll show you how all of that came out. Before that, we implemented what we call a mixed method approach to public engagement. We wanted to find out what do community members need, desire, and such. We started with the staff, and we spoke to staff members because we felt that in this case, 114 comments would help to introduce us to a lot of the challenges and strengths and opportunities and such that the staff, see on a daily basis. In my opinion, the staff, as they spoke to us, they live and they eat and they drink the district because they work in it every day, and they had an awful lot to offer. But again, we don't necessarily report the staff guidance to us or input at the same level in the master plan, because this is a community-driven master plan. We want to make sure that it's really community members that are speaking to us. So with that, we developed a social pinpoint site. We developed and tweaked the site a bit. We held an open house. We had intercept events in an open house where we used storyboards and asked folks to tell us what's more important to you. It could be soccer versus basketball, say. It could be aquatics versus hiking or what have you. We had these storyboards. People gave us priorities, 479 dots worth. And that gave us quite a bit of information. We launched the survey in two pieces. We had the random statistically valid survey, and I'll show you how that came out in a moment. But we also had an open link survey that we asked folks, encouraged everyone to take. We ended up with 552 completed surveys. There's more that were only partially completed, but 552 was enough where we can say with all transparency that your survey is statistically valid within a certain percentage. And I think that percentage is 5.7%. Many of you participated in our stakeholder and focus group meetings, and we learned a tremendous amount in terms of priorities, seeing, really what, as leaders, what your expectations were for the district. So we put all that together and marched forward. And what I can do now is present to you the key findings for all of that engagement. So here's the social pinpoint. From the website, we learned about accessibility, we learned about amenities, and safety came up really, it was really important. We learned that amenities in the parks, by amenities, we mean the components that go in that draw people to the park, and the comfort amenities like benches or shade or restrooms that would assist people to have a better experience. Trails, we learned that trails are of utmost important to members of your community and your district. And we learned that there's some need for new parks. When we do this kind of engagement, we try to make sure we clean up things like some grammar and we clean up spelling, but we want to maintain the integrity of what people reported to us. And so when it comes to things like the social pinpoint comments, we didn't vet them. We don't look at them and say, oh, I don't think that's significant. I don't think that person knew what they were asking for. So what you see are not conclusive, but they're one piece of that pie that we really want to consider. We've got thousands of comments. We've read every single one of them, and have tried as well as we can to incorporate those that are the key, most repeated things. So we go on to the survey, and here's what we received: 296 of the random surveys that are statistically valid at 5.7%, meaning 5% up or down either way in terms of the results. 5% is a very reasonable, very much accepted in the survey world as acceptable. The open link is not considered statistically valid, but when we do compare the results for the questions between the two, they were not very different. And so out of the 5,000 surveys mailed, again, we had 522 between the two different surveys that came into us. The open link survey was available. There were opportunities in both English and Spanish as well. So survey results told us, what do people do in terms of our survey? Remember, we know what the ESRI, the census data told us and the trends. So now we also know that outdoor recreation, natural areas, trails, and walkways are what your community told us. We know your sports programs were really important in outdoor sports fields. The thing to remember about the survey is the random survey is our best opportunity to gather information from people that may not be participants. And that's really important. The open link, people are more likely to be participants in, users of the parks and parents of youth sports and such. That's why when you look at outdoor sports fields and courts, you'll see that the open link was more than double, almost triple in terms of that particular category. However, the invite was a little bit more. Now those are people who use, in this case, use natural areas, trails, or walkways once a week. There's numbers for a few times a month and at least once a month. And so we consider that to be somewhat more regular participation. We asked some questions about what do you need, and compared it to what you said, what your community said is really important to you, because we wanted to see where those intersect so that we can kind of give you an indication of where to prioritize. Because if things are considered needs not met, but also not terribly important to your community, well, that should tell you maybe that's not an area to prioritize if the community doesn't think it's terribly important. So what we ended up there with was the left-hand quadrant is the most important. And it shows you the highest important and the low needs met. What's important in this to focus on is the needs met was on a scale of 1 to 5. Our quadrants there start at 3.3, which means virtually everything up there has some level, marginally or higher, of their needs being met. I've seen these where there's things at 1.8 and 2 and 2.5. So this is good news. But if you want to prioritize and really focus on those things that are, again, most important with lower needs, keeping that in perspective, you've got your trails up there, you've got athletic courts that are, are important to people, and also a little bit less needs being met. This isn't to suggest that you need to go out and build a whole bunch of anything. It's, again, one tool to give us an idea when you're making your priorities and making your decisions. And of course, our recommendations, we will take all of this into consideration. Uh-oh, my clicker's decided not to click. What is happening? Good. Well, we don't have to pause for technical. Now my clicker works again. We don't have to pause for technical difficulty. In the survey, we asked folks this question: how supportive are you of possible funding sources? And we gave them a list, and these are what people told us, that increasing the landscape maintenance assessment is something that more than half of your community members, and again, the open link, it's important, but I don't give it as much weight in this case as the random, because the random captures all of your voters. It's I think a more accurate indication of how this would go to the voters. But over half say, yeah, an increase in that fee, maybe we'd probably support it. So if they understand it, and then you decide you want to move forward, this wouldn't take the place of your polling information. But I think a number over 50% is kind of a prerequisite before you move forward with polling. Again, that's just my opinion. Increases in user fees on the recreation side, people are generally supportive a little bit. Say, yeah, we can, we would be willing to do. New bond, there's some options there. And you can see there's this little bit smaller number, but it's still up there in terms of the parcel tax. You'll see that there's a significant number of people this is on a scale of 1 to 5, and there's some definitely not supports. There's some bigger numbers there in terms of the random survey for parcel tax. Again, something to think about. There's a lot more that go into it, but it gives you kind of an indication to start thinking about it. I don't know if we want to hold off, Kobe, and I think this is probably of interest to you for discussion. Maybe go through the rest of the presentation and then dive into questions and things.
Yeah, where works best for everybody.
Okay, we'll kind of keep going then. Effectiveness in communication, we ask people, hey, how good is the district at talking to you, providing information? There are some special events and activities, quite a few, that sell out and that fill up, and people are getting the word. You do a yeoman's job at getting the word out through your guide, you mail it to all the households, those kind of things, they really help. However, folks might like at different age groups, different kinds of communication. And so that'll be provided as part of this project. However, what we see around the country is it's kind of similar to what the numbers are here. It's really hard to win at communication. I've had a few of my training from your experience.
All across the country, all the studies we do, it's pretty much right in the middle. People will say, this is how we want to be communicated with, but we're not satisfied with how we're being communicated with. But we get the information the way we ask. People communication is a struggle. No matter what you do, people always believe they can communicate better, because what it is the way we've changed as a society. We want to know something now when we want to know it. So Colby mentioned us today that there were people that, one or two people contacted him and said, I wish I would have known about last night's meeting. I mean, there were signs up, there was advertisements up, if you went on the website, social media, emails. There's people that were last night were told about tonight's meeting and, they're not here, but then, in a week, they're gonna be like, why didn't you tell me there was a board meeting? It's just people, their expectations are high. But we did learn a lot in all this information, both in the survey and the social pinpoint. We'll be sharing some information with you that's age specific. So when you're trying to promote a senior program, we can give you some ideas how to promote that. If you're trying to promote to youth, we have some information there. And what you need to do is just keep trying and staying at it and looking at what new ways are out there to communicate with people.
And communication goes both ways. So I deviate for about 30 seconds if that's okay. We were doing some ride-alongs with maintenance staff and looking at the parks and things this week. And one of the signs in one of the parks said, be aware, communicate with us if you see something. So there's a QR code. I hit the QR code, the web page came up on my phone, and I just said, if you can please call me when you have an opportunity, or call me right away when you see this. Wasn't 2 minutes later, and Kurt, your maintenance manager, called. Pretty amazing stuff. Key findings from the needs assessment. These are the things, needs assessment survey. The parks, open spaces, trails, pathways, most important facilities in both samples. Top future priorities really have to do with updating and repairing a lot of existing parks. You've got some parks that are amazing. You've got some parks that I would describe how well they're maintained as extraordinary. You've got some other parks that are kind of beyond their useful life, and I think I would explain them. I'd call them tired. There's just a few. There's not a huge amount, but they are there, and we'll want. But that came out in the survey as well. Developing new walking, biking trails and connecting existing trails. I think you're all aware that we are embarking on a trails master plan concurrent with this as well. So I think a lot of that, a lot of these recommendations will also find their way into that planning. There's concern in the community about ensuring that the trails and pathways are multi-use trails. That's the term that we would, let's say, really makes best sense, and that they're available for folks who own horses. And although as we drove around and looked at the side of the district where many of the families who own horses live and board them, what we found in the survey is that it's a small percentage of those people that own horses that actually utilize the resources that are already there. So you've got capacity for additional horses on the trails with the existing resource. Again, the equestrian areas are not necessarily used as much as maybe they could be. Again, we asked people about whether they feel welcome in the parks, and over half are rating a 4 or 5, indicating they feel very welcome. And there are times in park systems in the country where people will tell us they don't feel very welcome. And sometimes it's because all the signs do is say, no, 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 instead of, things that could be more positive and such. So there's a number of reasons people wouldn't feel welcome in the parks, but this is a good score. It's definitely good. So these are the principles for the new master plan that came out of the survey. This is really kind of the meat, the nuts and bolts. Safety and security, most important. Community parks as social gathering spaces. And so when we start making recommendations specific to certain kinds of parks and activities, i.e. dog parks are extremely social gathering spaces. So although we know that there's over 60-some percentage, 68% of households own dogs, remember, it's not always about the dogs, it's about people gathering as well. Increased recreational opportunities close to home. People within, say, a mile of their home, people can walk or drive to their park. That's an important thing on the survey. Whenever you have either the open or the invite, and they're approaching or at 4 on the scale of 1 to 5, that's people who are really kind of adamant about saying, this is really important to me. When you have 552 people that average a 4 or higher, that's really, really important. Higher priority to maintenance of existing parks, and we will be breaking this out to see where those respondents, at least for the random, which part of the district they send. So we can kind of identify the parks that are considered there. Provide land to support equestrian use and provide increase admission fees. So people are telling us in the survey even, we want more services. We love the services that you're offering and we're willing to pay for them. So level of service, if you just, I'm going to turn this over to my colleague. Turn over the clicker for a few minutes.
So we had a couple of our staff members come and do a level of service analysis, as well as we used a landscape architect, a California landscape architect. One of the things we developed, system-wide map, we plotted where all your parks are on a map and kind of help categorize them. We also looked at each individual park and we graded it. We gave it a score sheet. So that's what you see there. We looked at the park and we looked at the components they have, and we looked at how well they meet their intended purpose. And then we gave them a score of a 1, 2, or 3, depending on whether they were exceptional, just okay, or not meeting the needs. And we did that for every single park. We have a data set we compare it to as well. But really the important thing is each park was looked at, all of the amenities were identified and their conditions. And from that, we're able to make a list of projects or items that you should look to repair in the future. And the fact that we looked at every single park, we looked at, do you have standards? Are all your park benches the same? And things like that. So we're able to help give suggestions to the district about how to make your parks better and improve your maintenance. And another part of what we did, Jeff and I, the last couple of days, talked to your maintenance staff and did ride-arounds with your maintenance staff to take a look at how they're doing things and you know what supports they need to have. We had several discovery sessions with them where we talked to them, did both to the supervisors and then the actual people out in the field to kind of get a sense of how everything is going. This is kind of where we did the component scoring, and what it's showing is we gave scores a 0 if it wasn't there at all, but 1, 2s, and 3s. And we compared it to a national data set of all the ones that we've done. And we were able to indicate how many of yours scored a 1, 2, or 3. But really, when you look at the Atlas, which is a deliverable we'll give to Colby, and I'm sure that you'll share with them, you can go and look at a park. So if there's a park in your division and you want to know how it's scored, you can flip through the Atlas, find your park, and there's all kinds of information there. We, NRPA, National Recreation Park Association, has performance benchmarks. They have surveyed and asked other National Recreation Park Association members to fill out the surveys. And based on all of that, they've collected data. And these are not standards, they're not guidelines, they're metrics. When you look at all of the parks across the country, then Jeff was able to pull information for populations between 100,000 and 250,000. And you're in the 120,000. So you fit in that range. And it just gives us a sense. It's just another checkpoint of how many playgrounds do other agencies have compared to you? How many basketball courts, things like that. But again, it's only one checkpoint that we look at. And in our opinion, we were talking about this before we came here tonight. If you were to put your district here, and then all the other agencies that have between 100 and 250,000 population, their profile and everything on the table, nobody would be like you. And chances are each one of them wouldn't be like anybody. So benchmarking is difficult, but it just gives us a little bit of guide. But what you can see on the far right, it indicates that according to the NRPA metrics, maybe you need to look at tennis courts, maybe you need to look at pickleball courts, maybe you need to look at a swimming pool. This isn't a guaranteed, it's just a maybe. And it also gives information about the size, how many acres you should have per population compared to others. So here, you can see by looking at the NRPA data that your district, your median number of parks acres per capita might be a little bit lower than what some of the other ones are. But then again, we looked at the components, so we were looking at quality as much as quantity. You know, there are other districts that have more acres, but there's nothing in them. But you can see that, we gave you a whole bunch of different data sets to the right, how many accessible acres you have, what your population is, what your population is projected, and how many acres maybe you should consider adding in the future. And again, we'll have all kinds of write-ups in our report that you can look at that. And I don't think we've ever mentioned this. We didn't mention it last night, but one of the things we believe in is customers for life, pretty much, or clients for life. So when we're all done and hopefully at the end you adopt the plan, 6 months later, a year later, you have a question, told me, you just reach out to us and we'll help you explain it.
And just to add back on that last slide there, you look at it, it says we need 415 acres to get to that 5.2 standard by 2028. That's impossible, literally impossible. But some of this is out of proportion too, as we've talked about the last couple of days. Some of these agencies, they're more than twice our size, but they also have maybe multiple golf courses. That's counting into that acreage. So and then we're seeing some trends here in California that these numbers of acres is going down because of our challenges with the drought. We're not going to necessarily, we're looking at the quality acreage moving forward, not just the pure size.
Which that scorecard that I showed you is the quality and quantity, where this is just quantity. And you made a great point because you don't have a lot of quote open space. We go into other communities and, they might have, a park that's 100, 150, 200 acres of
8,000 acres and so.
of open space. And it's beautiful, it's wonderful, it's great. There's a path through it, but that's all there is. There's no fields, there's no restrooms, there's no benches. It's just, but that counts in there. And so when you toss 8,000 acres of wonderful, important land that you can't really use, it skews everything.
Also just add that those are only of the agencies that filled the survey out. And it's a very extensive survey and a lot of them don't do that. And they count things differently. Some golf courses are double counted because it's a golf course and it's open space. Therefore, it's in 2 columns, for example. So it's a benchmark to look at, but it's probably one of the lower on the list to say you have to have this because everybody else in the country has this many.
I think we were talking the other day, there's an agency who's responsible to take care of all the roads as part of their thing. So they counted all the acres of the roads. There's others that we work with that have to do all the medians. So they count those as parkland. I don't know how many people recreate in the median. I personally try to stay out of that.
Yeah, there's some other comparative work that we're doing. So in the plan, when we present it, you'll also see other local communities close by and you'll be able to compare what they do as well.
So part of what we also did is we developed a bunch of maps. This map is showing the different barriers to moving about the district. Those purple lines are major highways, railroad tracks, things that prevent you from crossing. We use something we call the 880 rule. If you wouldn't send your 8-year-old to cross that, or you wouldn't send your 80-year-old, father-in-law, uncle, whatever, on their own, then it's probably not a safe thing. So, what this is showing is there might be a park that's 300 yards from somebody, but because it's on the other side of the railroad tracks right there, it may not actually be accessible. And you'll see as we develop other maps, this here we're talking about, we were giving you the components and we were recommending that you have in the neighborhood of 4 components in a park, 4 reasons to go to a park. And you can see that, you know, the majority of your parks have 4 or 5. And we've given you some recommendations in other parks that might not have them. But here's another map, and you can see the purple are where we believe people have access within a mile to a park. And we felt in talking to staff and residents and by doing it ourselves, we drove around a lot the last couple of days and all the other times we were here, that your community, it's more realistic that if you could have a park within a mile, you could ride a bike or walk or drive. It's not realistic that size of your district and the way it's laid out and with some of those barriers that everyone could have a park within a 10-minute walk. You know, if very dense communities, that's the expectation. You have a lot of people whose property is the same as a park in some other communities.
So what it's telling you is that 88% of your community can drive within a mile of a park that has some outdoor recreation components. It's not 88% at the 4 component standard, but I might point out that you've got 9 or 10 very small, less than an acre parks, and they are not deficient. They're doing what you intended them to do. And so the bottom line is, and they don't fit 4 components in the little parks. So the bottom line is people within your district have very reasonable, very good access for the most part to get to a park within a short distance close to home.
And there's some components like a sports complex that you're not going to have one of those in every park. Same with the horse arena or, you know, a skateboard park. It's a wonderful component, but nobody has one in every park. And you can see the purple is really good. The yellow is pretty good. The gray might be where you don't have service, but if you actually go in and look at that, a lot of that is industrial areas. Doesn't really make a lot of sense to put a park in an industrial area. Yes.
Is it white or is it gray? So I'm confused.
It's a light gray. I think the 2 grays are different colors that they used.
Light gray is the industrial areas where you don't have any households.
Okay,
The darker gray means that those people that live in those areas do not have a 1 mile access to a park.
okay,
Yellow means that they have access to something. Might be a trailhead, might be whatever, and then the purple is the one that have access
go park.
to a park with a lot of stuff.
Okay, so kind of start to wrap up the presentation here. These were the reoccurring themes that we found as we started back in June and gotten us to today. Population's growing, the older population as well, while some youth populations are declining. As we said, high income in comparison to California, United States. You've got it's 64% of your residents are Hispanic background. Significant percentage of population reports disability. Those are the same kind of things that we talked about. Highest used activities, walking and hiking. Most important services offered to the district are parks, trails, and special events, just as you would kind of expect. For the most part, district residents are very satisfied. Across the board, the satisfaction number is at 80%, which is really, really high. It's really good. Need for additional park space. There are some gaps. We looked at as well walkable access within 10 minutes, and there's about 58%. That's at that half mile. But really, as Tom said, the important one to look at is the 1 mile drive.
And if I can just add on to that, we had a long discussion between the two, the 1 mile and the 10-minute walk. We really felt the 1 mile is a better goal for us because we have so much diversity within the community when it comes to the neighborhoods. The new development is obviously much higher dense than some of the older development, Sky Country, the Miraloma area. Those are primary half-acre lots or bigger. So just the fact of having to walk past all those lots, you're gonna walk farther to get to that park, but still serving similar amount of people. So that's why we felt that the 1 mile came in, but that's something that the board can have a discussion on. And if that's the standard we want to keep or not. It's nothing set in stone here, but that was the rationale to getting to that standard.
The 10-minute walk, a lot of that came about in very dense communities and, you know, people living in multi-unit housing, apartments and things like that. They don't have, you have the house where you live and there's nothing else. So you want to go to somewhere. People want to be able to get there in 10 minutes, spend 20 minutes, walk back home. Like Colby just said, a lot of your people don't walk their dog. They just let the dog out in the backyard, in a fenced-in yard. So they're not looking to walk 10 minutes to a park 3 times a day. And they're, you know, most likely willing to go in a car or ride a bike or take a longer walk to a park.
Highest needs for parks in terms of components and amenities. Again, focus on safety and security for parks in those areas that may be deficient, with the gap areas. Lighted sports fields. There actually is quite a bit of evidence on that we have discovered that's really an important thing to your community. We weren't able to take the time to present all the fine points of where it came from, but better communication, kind of always there. Additional shade in the parks, really important to people. Indoor and outdoor, both fitness came out really, really important to your community. And then there's even one for better maintenance of parks, although I'm not ready to conclude that that's super important at this point. Most important programs, activities, you see them listed there. People are supportive of financing. There's room to, of course, always improve your communication. So these are some of the reoccurring themes. So now that we know everything that we've known so far, what's next? Well, we need to complete. We're just have a little bit more to do on a financial and organizational assessment that we have worked on. We've drafted the maintenance assessment that we did while we were here. We need to finish that. We'll be working more on the facility assessment. We'll be doing some work in the recreation area, assessing efficiencies and effectiveness there. We completed the visioning workshop this morning. And so what we'll be doing is putting all this together into goals, policies, strategies, action, and then action items. We'll be working with Colby and yourselves to prioritize what are the low-hanging fruit there? What are the things that you might do in 3 to 5 years, say, and maybe those things 6 to 10 years, or however we'll work with you on those kind of phased approach. And then we're going to work on drafting the plan. And once the plan is drafted, you'll have an opportunity. We encourage you to mark it up and confirm things again with us. And then we'll go to a final plan. Along the way, we'll get it formatted so it looks really nice, and it'll go off to can be there. We'll post it to your community. Host opportunities for community members to testify and say that they think it's a good plan or not. And then ultimately you'll adopt it, and hopefully in a similar way, we'll adopt the Trails Master Plan that is, which is a project with the city of Jurupa Valley. Ultimately, we would expect probably coming to you at some point in the summer, say again, the draft will be this spring. It will take some time for everyone to have the opportunity to really unpack and repack it, and us to do the edits and things like that. So we're available for any questions you have, or comments, or input, however you'd like to proceed.
I'd like to say I'm so pleasantly pleased. I'm really thrilled, but I had no idea what your job and task would be, but everything that you've presented, I'm excited for us as a group here to really start to follow through with it. And I know that we will, but it is you that we needed. And thank you, Colby, for that. You were very precise, and I look at it as a punch list, we can't get lost. I mean, I really see that. So, the opinion survey at so many different levels, I'm just really thrilled, so.
Thank you.
Thank you, is all I can say.
The important element for us is to get it right.
Well, you did it right in terms of, the way you laid it out. For me, thank you. I mean, I just wanted, the punch points and the highlights and the statistics, everything is supporting what you're saying. So, like I say, I'm really thrilled that we're going to be able to look at this and follow through. So thank you.
My question, what kind of, you said that hiking, walking is a big component. Do you have any idea of whether it's just the neighborhoods? I know we have a lot of hills in the city, right? Do you know? I think
Well,
that's part of that.
on the 29th and 30th of this month, we'll be at the City Hall for City of Veruca, at the City of Veruca Valley City Hall. And we'll be doing a similar type of engagement process, focusing on the trails. All the questions that we'll be speaking to community members about will be, what kind of trails? Where do you want to go? Which connections do you want? Do you want to get to the river? Do you want to get to the hills? Do you want to connect up? Do you want walking paths in the parks? What does all this look like? And so we intentionally, when we decided and, when the decision was made to do the Trails Master Plan, we kind of, I hate to use the term, but pulled back the reins just a little bit while we figured out the process and the strategy for the Trails Plan. So that ordinarily we'd be able to talk to you a little bit more about the trails, but we don't want to do it twice. We want to make sure that we don't burden the community members more than once. Engagement on the 29th and 30th of this month, and then we'll have a much better idea.
All right.
Okay.
Any other comments, questions?
Well, on the inclusiveness, I know, the high number of people with handicaps or different problems. Would the recommendations be to build separate facilities that are strictly all-inclusive, or to add inclusive elements at existing parks? I mean, how has that worked out better in other areas?
The short answer to that is both. In other words, I would, recommendation from us would be when you replace your next playground, or figure out where you think the best regional location is, because inclusive playgrounds have regional attractions. And by inclusive, we mean everything that you do on a playground should be open to everybody regardless. And there are some great examples out there. Probably the best one, if you're up in the San Francisco, Palo Alto area, Magical Bridge has kind of been the one. There are sensory things you can play with that are just, the laser beams, you go like this, you can play songs with your hands in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it's really some neat stuff. I've seen zip lines, people in wheelchairs inside of a playground. They're really exciting to build. They're more fun, I think, than regular, normal kind of structure playgrounds. But you have to be ready that you're going to get a lot of participation when you open one of these. In answer to the second part of the question, and I would definitely recommend looking and prioritizing that, is that as other playground components fail, replace them with inclusive ones as you can. In other words, we used to all have these, I call them whirlies, but these kind of merry-go-rounds or another thing. You can now get one that have an instant transfer with a wheelchair. You attach it to it and you can participate in exactly the same way. Swings are exactly that way too. You can get inclusive swings. So if your swing system fails and you replace it, I would look, to the extent that you've got the budget and the ability to do it, I would focus on that. So answer to both.
But it's not only playground. It's
Yeah.
making sure, like, is this building ADA accessible? A lot of times, and we're having someone look at that, they were here today and again tomorrow. Like you might have something in your park that, like the basketball court might be ADA accessible over there. But you can't get there from the parking lot. A lot of times people will build a tennis court in the middle of your green grass and 20 feet from the tennis court, there's a very nice sidewalk with the right slope and everything, and the doors wide and all that. But you can't get from where the sidewalk starts to the parking lot. Or you come in the building and you've made this room ADA accessible, but now I have to go to the bathroom and I can't get through the doorway. So and there's laws and codes now that the people understand that takes time and it's expensive. And what you're gonna do is start working towards it. No one can fix it all in one day. But anything you go new forward, you try to make sure it's ADA accessible and all inclusive. And as you do any renovations, you try to address those. That's the physical aspect. Brick and mortar and things. It's also equipment, but then it's also programming. You know, you try to make sure when you're having a program, like we watched your tumbling class the other day, that's on the ground, it's low. So if there was a child that was in a wheelchair or anything like that, they had an opportunity to do that. You know, you make sure your classes are accessible, and you also might at times offer an interpreter, or, you know, you might have someone who could do sign language when needed, things like that.
Part of the discussion we had today in regards to this was a big topic with staff. We still get people calling us all the time. I have a child with these challenges, or can they, you know, maybe autistic or something, can they participate in this program? Can they sign up? Yeah, and we do not turn anybody away. And the recommendation they have is, who knows what your mission and value statement is? We're not, you know what it is. It's something that we know we need to update and look at. It's as simple as updating that to include, you know, these that we are inclusive and that everybody is welcome, and putting that under our brochure to help so people know we're doing what we can to make it available for everybody. So since it's not just the physical that they're talking about and the physical access, but it's that everybody knows they are welcome within our facility, and we need to do a better job of that as well.
Well, that's what I guess I was trying to refer to. The thoughts that came to my mind, you seem to have data to bring in and look at it, and then another data to bring in and look at it. So that's where my excitement started, that you've given us all these things that I would have not thought of had I not heard this presentation today.
And if you're making the effort, people that have disabilities, they realize that. And as long as you're making the effort, they'll work with you to help you work with them. But you're gonna have someone come in with a challenge that you weren't prepared for. And as long as you say, we talk to you, we understand it, let us work to address it, you're gonna make a lot of people happy.
I see that.
Good question.
Any more questions? Yes. You brought up people being okay with raising fees. I was wondering if that could be broken down into what demographic is okay with that, right? So we.
Oh, sure. Absolutely. We can break it out by, say, families with children, without children. We can break it out by age. We can break it out by district, if you're interested. If you have any ideas what you'd like to see, otherwise we can.
That and perhaps like financial, their
By
income
family
levels,
income.
yeah. Because it wouldn't be fair to listen to people that are in better income situations say, yes, raise it, and basically marginalize another set of people.
I will say that income is one of the things that some people don't fill out. But those that did, we can cross that.
Right. Also, when that say no, can you figure out how many of the people that voted for higher income or less are actually likely voters? Because people can say whatever they want, and if they don't go vote, it really doesn't
We
matter.
did ask on the survey, I believe we asked the question, are you a registered voter?
So even that statistic is, because I think that's important as well.
Someone is, do they actually vote?
Right.
Registered voters.
And
don't know, don't
you can
know.
never be 100% on that. I get that, but
The
I still
biggest
think
thing-
that's important.
Well, I think the one that we can talk to is who's in your district that pays taxes. That don't pay your bills. Rather than going outside your district, is what I'm saying.
So
we've had this conversation about pickleball for a while now. I did not get the impression you got an overwhelming desire for pickleball. Am I mistaken?
Not yet, and the survey did not bear that out. It absolutely gets a correct statement. But I wouldn't shut the door on that sport. I think it's going to be here. It's going to come. And I think that in my experience, and I lean on my colleagues here, if this is a similar experience, that indoor pickleball, and particularly when you do phase 2 of the new facility, that your existing Wanamaker gymnasium may be absolutely perfect as a destination for pickleball. Because you're going to have that. People are going to be playing much more over at Skyview. Just a thought. But again, I wouldn't close the door on pickleball yet. It's growing so fast, 8 to 10% a year.
No, I'm not saying we should close the door. I'm just saying that currently right now,
We're not recommending that you build a pickleball complex, but we would probably recommend like when you put lines down on your new gym, put pickleball lines down.
If we had a tennis court,
Sit here.
yeah.
Yeah, in our plans, as we put them into short-term, midterm, long-term, it probably wouldn't be in the short-term immediate need. But to plan for it in a 10-year plan, I mean, depending on what year that the new gym comes in, might be a target for that.
And the other thing too is, we didn't provide, there was just so much data, but in the comments, I read through them all. You can tell the people that ask for pickleball are very passionate. It's very passionate in their comments.
oh yes, people like to play pickleball are very passionate. I don't know, are you ready? You got your pen? I have my comments. I have no idea how the rest of them feel, but one of my comments is that I want to know what my district needs. I am not interested in meeting the needs of the region because we have limited funds, we have limited abilities. So one of my current frustrations is that the big city next door shut down their big soccer complex. Because they had a big soccer complex, they weren't building soccer fields elsewhere. And now we have this unmet need in a city of 325,000 people. And of course, they immediately turn their eyes across the river to the soccer complex that we have. And then it's this like this, because you've got adult leagues that don't have someplace else to play and they want to come here, but they're not residents. So for example, happy to build new soccer fields, but not for people that don't live in Herb Valley, or at least not to a great extent. So that would be one of my comments. Another comment that I would have is that I think we need to concentrate first on our existing facilities, because like your 4 reasons to go to a park, I would want to make sure that every one of our facilities meets that need. I would want to look at our existing facilities. Like you said, some are tired and we know that. Some don't have the things, and I think that that should be a priority, is working with what we have first. And then after that, I think that we need to look at the maps and perhaps pick 3 spots where we're going to prioritize where we
Future.
put in new parks to close up those yellow gaps that make them purple, and start, emphasizing trying to find land in those areas when it becomes available or whatever. And that to me would be the way I would look at it.
I'd like to build on what you said, Kim, because maybe I misunderstood, and that's when I got excited. I thought you had some data that would give us by division. So as she said, let me look at my own backyard to make sure I am fulfilling my role as my constituents would like. So was that not what you also have? Yeah, that's
We
what
could just clarify, Kim, are you asking for us to tell you what needs to be in Division 1? Or you want to know what needs to be in Division 1, 2, 3, and 4, not what's going to take care of?
I think speaking for, maybe I shouldn't speak for the rest of my board members, but I do think we are all about our entire district.
Right.
I'm not
That's
just
what
worried about Division.
You want to I don't think anything is on our radar that we've talked about that's looking to build a regional facility other than the playground, which is all inclusive. those are all Missouri, you know.
No, I know, but sometimes there are things that are more regional and less, and that I'm just saying. So I think soccer is the one that makes it this most significant to me, and that is I want to make sure I'm meeting the needs of my local community. And if we can meet outside needs, yay, but I'm not worried about spending that.
And so sometimes that can be controlled a little bit with non-resident fee.
Oh, we realize that.
And you can control that. You can have residents register first
Oh, yes.
and they get the leftovers, that kind of stuff. But I think what I'm hearing is we don't need to build a major soccer complex that is too big for your district because of
Right.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about like an accessible playground that may be used by people outside the district. I mean, I guess one of the thing that comes up, it hasn't really come up with your people, but like a pump track. And that people will say, well, the closest pump track is in Lake Elsinore, which tells me that if we build a pump track, it's going to immediately become a regional facility. So do we need to put money into a pump track? I'm just using that as an example. It could be, you name it, a tennis complex.
Pickleball.
Exactly, name something. You know, do I need to build pickleball courts because the people in Riverside don't have pickleball courts? No, I don't.
When we did our visioning this morning, I don't recall anything that's anything like that we were recommending a, 8 or 10 field complex or a 4-field baseball complex or anything. It was all, what does this district
What does
need?
this district need? Okay.
Yeah.
But beyond that, like I said, just concentrating on our existing facilities, seeing how we can maximize them so that they're the best that they can be and provide as much as possible to the constituents and then look past that too.
I was wondering, maybe a comment about new parks. We tend to not pick parcels,
Oh, no. That would be up to us.
even if we identify one and they think, oh, our district's interested in buying it, they start adding zero. We might tell you in these regions, and we hope the maps help guide you to that. And this is gonna be a roadmap for you. And if you,
Yeah.
just like on Waze or anything else, I'm old enough that ones used to unfold. There's gonna be detours that we can't predict.
Right. And I
But
would.
this
yeah.
is gonna get you to the destination.
No, but I would not expect you to pick parcels, but I'm just saying we should prioritize however many areas we decide where we should probably be looking to find parcels.
Which again, the emphasis that I saw or heard from you excites me because you have done that in Lakewood for us from what I'm understanding your presentation, I think you call them the tired park. So I think I want to walk away with that. And I think that's what you're saying. If I hear you correctly, again, forgive me if I don't, that, we want to look at those first. And
Yes.
yeah.
Yes,
I
we want to
agree.
look at
Yeah.
making what we have, using
Yeah.
what we have to the best we
Right.
can, and
Right.
then.
I agree. So thank you for that kind of information.
Yes, and a couple of things real quick. The good news is that as you take some of those parks that may have low scoring components, meaning that when we look to see the park, what are you doing? What are you doing for your community members? What is the experience that people get when they go to the park? If you have a park with low scoring components, you're not getting that experience and you're not getting the rating that, then that means that people who drive within a mile, that isn't giving them credit. The good news is your level of service will be impacted at 88% based on what you do in terms of fixing things or infill, those kind of things. The second thing is you'll have a gaps map that is also going to be overlaid with population served. So if you look at you look and say, oh, I've got these 3 places. This one affects 100 people, but this one affects 10,000 people or 5,000 people. That's kind of important to me to put our money in. It's what you might suggest, but also crime index, diversity. What's the other one? There's one other one that I've asked him to look at. So you'll have different objective ways to decide, not just is there an empty space, but if you do something in that space or fix that park in that space, who is it going to impact and how is that impact going to come about? So you can make some comparisons.
Yes.
Household income was the other one. Yes.
Is density, did you say that or did I miss that? I mean, isn't density kind
Yes,
of?
yes, and the number of people that are within that zone area inside of the district.
Because to me, the areas that are densest, maybe they are a 10-minute walk. And the areas that are less dense, maybe they're a mile.
Yeah, and so
It doesn't have to be the same across the entire district.
exactly, and those are decisions you're going to be able to make. But that's the beauty of the component-based system. You're going to have different options, and everything that you do when you make those decisions can be supported, can be data driven. Which is different than what we used to always do. And we're not going to give you a plan where you need a dog to.
Yes.
Any more questions, Ms. Johnson? I just have one last question. In the map where you have the 1 mile drive, what do you, in general, do you incorporate, let's say, HOA parks, right? Where they might affect, right? The data or.
We look at alternative providers of park space, but we don't necessarily count that park space, and we don't count the park space in the acreage where we're making comparisons. So the reason to do that is if you had a park next to a county park, the county park had this beautiful, expansive playground. You may not need to build a playground in your park. People have access, it's right there. So, but the key word is there is access. In other words, we typically won't look at school facilities. I mean, we look at them, we inventory them, but you don't always count them because you can't count on having access to those spaces.
That's important.
And we spent a lot of time with Colby and his staff, and they're really understanding the maps. So when they get the final versions of the maps, they'll have the ability to look and, say, oh, that looks like right on the edge of where we, should serve. But now I can look and realize that's XYZ neighborhood. And we know that neighborhood, when it was built, they put in a community pool, they have walking trails, you've got to look at some of that.
Gateway facilities.
And some of the other stuff too is, we know the neighborhoods like, yeah, but the problem with this is the school traffic. Or the problem with this neighborhood is you can't get through because of railroad tracks or cul-de-sacs. And it's, even though it's right there, physically get to that park, it's actually 2 miles. Let me go around.
So like the county facility, like Rancho River Park,
Yeah.
they have a beautiful playground. It costs you $5 a car to get in. So, not.
That is not access to the.
No. So that we can't count that in any way, shape. Because not saying there aren't people in the community that don't go there, but
But now the answer isn't always saying in the case of tennis courts, like we talked about earlier. The case doesn't mean you have to go and build a bunch of tennis courts, but to provide access to your community. That might be negotiating an agreement with the school district.
But because between the 3 high schools and the 3 middle schools, we probably have dozens upon dozens of tennis courts in this community.
Exactly, but the important thing is, can I go play at a reasonable time, reasonable manner? Or am I shut out except for Tuesdays at 3 o'clock if it's raining?
I think you're shut out completely. Don't
But-
think that they're
But maybe there's opportunities.
Oh, I would agree. You can go play on
Depends on the day.
Depends
If
on
you know,
the
if you know which gate to get through, you can go play some of them.
probably needs to be
But
formalized.
and some of it's establishing these relationships. And we talked today a lot of these questions that you guys have brought up. And the example we used was Clay Park. Clay Park has 6 or 7, maybe 8 amenities. But it's one of our, may not be tired yet, but it's definitely slowing down. But it's got a restroom, but it's at its lifetime. It's gonna have to be replaced here pretty soon. It's got a newer playground, but it's not the greatest of playgrounds. It's got a shelter, but it gets used a lot. Do we need a second shelter? It's got the volleyball court that's used by more cats than people.
It's not
The grass out there, it has 2 backstops, but it's not really for baseball. The basketball court is in need of renovation and update. But we can do a lot of these are the low-lying fruits, that we talked about. We can come in and, from our survey that we've seen, walking and exercise, outdoor exercise are 2 of the most popular things that people are asking for. The makeup of Clay Park has a natural walking path around it. We can very easily add into a lot of the passive areas of the park that aren't used and put in exercise equipment or remove the volleyball court and make that. Add a second shelter somewhere. So for, it's not cheap, but it's a lot more affordable than building a new park and really give it a facelift and meet and bring that level of service up immensely.
5 out of the 8 components at that park score a 1 on the 1, 2, 0, 1, 2, 3 scale.
Oh.
Even in the restroom, in terms of design and ambiance, or what I call comfort amenities, it's also a 1.
You're generous.
Yeah, you're very generous.
I have another question. Will this plan encompass also our transition into different kinds of lawn alternatives? So not just like desert tolerant plants, but maybe we could add more trees or add a section that is sort of like a nature section where, yes, there's flowers, but we let it dry up because say you grow sunflower, it dries up in the winter, the seeds are there to feed birds, the hollow stalks house bees, and we sort of designate that like a natural area.
We certainly can. We can certainly look at recommendations that would go that direction. We know already that there's needs for upgraded irrigation systems, which is important. We've had conversations with the maintenance supervisors about drought tolerance. The first thing I ask is what percentage of your grass has clover in it, for instance. If you do 25%, you reduce your water usage and it still looks nice and plush and green. But you've got exceptionally high quality turf in most of your parks. And so, yeah, we could look at that, absolutely. For sure, that can be an overall recommendation to say, you need to look at that. It came out in the maintenance assessment.
Yeah. It's one other thing I learned through this process so far. The safety and security is constantly coming up as high. And the comments last night, that they were at the board meeting, at the meeting from one of the user groups, cars are getting broken into in our parking lot. It happens. Don't get me wrong, but it's not at the rate that it's being led to believe. And one of the things that they've helped instill into us is it's somebody's perception. If they perceive that it's unsafe, they're always going to feel that it's unsafe. So what can we do to ease that perception? And one of the things that they kind of recommended was don't tout that we're installing all these security cameras. Because my thought was, hey, we're installing security cameras. We're worried about your safety. We want you to be safe. But the citizens' response is that must be unsafe. They're putting security cameras in. So that was
the opposite message.
It's the opposite message. So we just need to, some of these things we just need to quietly do.
And one of the things that'll be in here besides the recommendations and goals and objectives is an implementation plan, which will tell you once you adopt the plan, how to implement this, and also over the next 5-10 years, how you keep informing the community of here's what we said we're going to do, here's what we've accomplished. I think I've shared with you what some of the other agencies have done as far as like a flyer that shows how many programs they have, how many parks they have, how many acres. So we're working to give you information of ways you can share and tell your story. And just once this is all done by posting this on the website, people will say, look, we have a plan. And we have goals and objectives, and here's what we're going to try to do. That's going to be very positive for you.
All right. Thank you. Is that it for everyone? All right.
What do you want more out of us? Is there something you want from us that we haven't given you yet?
When we come back to you with the draft, it will be really important to us that the draft represents your feedback before we go into the point where we're formatting the document and going out to the community with it. We want to make sure that it represents and that you're happy with where we are at that point. So we'll be working with Colby, and that'll really be the next big step on this.
And just for clarification and just to repeat it, You know, we look at, you know, the comments have been made regarding Avalon, and those are our kind of most tired parks out there. We know that, we've recognized it. Will you be taking the data you've received and making recommendations? You know what? It looks from us that your best use of Avalon will be soccer or baseball or softball. You know, is that the type of recommendation that will be coming forward?
Yes, and again, that's one of the things we talked about, the three of us, when we were looking at the places we were looking today. But again, when you get that first written draft, we want you to read through it and point out things like that we may have missed or we didn't explain enough. We want to write this in the right tense. We don't want to write, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this. No, we don't want to tell you what to do. We want to recommend what you can consider doing, giving you an option to, you know, go and get funding for it. And also to do it at your pace. But yes, you know, there'll be recommendations in maintenance about some things you could do to improve maintenance. There'll be recommendations in programs about things you could do in programs. And I mean, that's why we brought Pat in today, like to look at the different facilities. We'll give you some recommendations of, you know, Wanamaker Gym, if when you open Skyview, what else could maybe be at Wanamaker? What could be at the fields around there? Memorial, you know, what could be there? Yes.
We talked a lot about repositioning the senior center.
Yeah, that was one of the big discussions we had today is not a senior center, it's a multi-generational community center. You know, because after hours, we have other activities going there. Some of the, you know, Pat gave some great examples of, we don't have a lot of team programming. We have basically no team programming. But some very successful programs are having these high school age students come in after school hours as the senior center and the community center is slowing down and joint programming. What is it you seniors can learn from the high school students? I need to learn how to get on social media so I can talk to my grandchildren or operate my phone. And what is it you students, you know, you want to learn from the seniors? I think give examples of, you know, I don't know how to cook. I want to
Canning, quilting, all the things that tend to skip a generation sometimes. My grandma did this. My
Crocheting.
mom, I'm a great example. My mom cooks great, just like my grandma. Didn't write one recipe down. Oh, it's about this much, it's about this much. There are programs where now they come in and they say, I do the same thing, so you write down how much I put in. I did that. So that's about a half cup. So no, don't just dump it. Dump it in a cup first and then put it in there and then I'll write it in. So yeah, some examples like that I said today, that they start out as senior centers, but they close down at 3 o'clock. And they're right across the street from high school. And this happened voluntarily after school. And then the seniors wanted to reciprocate and teach, because it started with how to use my cell phone and all that stuff. And then it became families coming in at 5 o'clock to work out, you know, while their kids were doing homework or walking on a track or whatever. So it's everything now tends to be not dedicated space, but multi-purpose space, multi-generational. And again, the inclusiveness of anybody can come in and do that. It might be time-based. Exclusive seniors till 3 o'clock. After that, you know, why close the doors? I mean, you're already doing that.
It needs to be in the.
another great example, I think that we talked about today is, you know, we've tried to do trips and stuff at the senior center, but we're not getting the enrollment. Well, don't call it a senior center trip. Run it out of the parking lot of Skyview and just call it a trip for adults or trip to whatever, and it's open to anybody. You're gonna get a lot of maybe seniors that don't consider themselves old enough to go to the senior center, but want to go to that museum or that whatever place. You know, it's just kind of changing the way that we're approaching it.
Some of the stories Pat was talking about is, we've heard stories of, you know, a senior stayed a little bit longer in the senior center and ran into the teen and they became friends, and that senior went to that kid's graduation and was the only family they had at the graduation. And then that kid you know, it was a different community, went and shoveled the driveway of that senior, because the senior had no one to do that, or that kid went and brought groceries to the senior. And that senior taught the kid how to cook. And, you know, I'm not saying you're seniors, but there's a lot of people that you get to be, your kids are gone, your grandkids don't live around here. You're not working full time. You're looking for things to do. And, you know, maybe you connect with a kid and the next thing you know, you got a buddy. You know what I mean? You go to a game with them or you help them with homework. And then they realize you've got an issue, you know, like after the holidays, you're trying to put away all your Christmas items. You know, kid comes over and helps you box it up and take it up the attic. You know, there's just, and you're smiling, like all of a sudden, you know, you start smiling and it's like, this is good. And it didn't cost anything.
Well, and that's a good, it's interesting that you mentioned that because I was at the senior center this week. And I made a suggestion for an activity. And I was told that the people who participate in that activity currently during the day would probably not be the best fit for the activity I suggested. But we could do that same activity 7 o'clock at night and anybody could come. Some of those same seniors, but anybody could come. Would probably bring a whole different atmosphere to that activity. And we probably could do that activity more as a community activity, not as a senior center activity. Because, you know, you have different age groups participating.
The commonality we see across the country is a senior center comes with a label.
Yes.
And it's sedentary and usually it's brown cards, eating, bingo, those types of things. And when you kind of break out of that box, you can bring that active adult that might be older than any senior in there, but they don't want to sit around and do that. They want to go to a ball game. They want to go out and hike. They want to do rock climbing. And in all of these cases where they were protective of billiard tables that I'm familiar with where this happened is without any coaching, that 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock hour, they challenged each other and took tournaments and, you know, all of a sudden they're playing billiards together. When at first they goes, no, they'll tear up our tables. And so, well, number one, they're not your tables and they're probably going to get repaired if they get torn up. So you just kind of let it happen. There's a lot of ways that happens.
Same with calling it a teen center.
Yeah.
You know, the seniors think they can't go in the teen center. That's why we're seeing a lot of the buildings now are being called community recreation center as opposed to a gym or a fitness center. A lot of it is, you know, how you word it and how you name it. You know, active adult is what some communities tell us when you're 55, you're a senior. That was a while ago. Now, when you're 55, you're just 55.
There's 90-year-olds that tell us, better go to the senior center because I'm not old.
Oh, I've known you.
But I think the whole idea is that inclusivity can be taken to a different level outside of disabilities. And it's everybody feels, you know, we saw it there, people feel welcome. But when there's a stigma there that this is for this group of people. And I think it's okay to program at that level at certain hours. I mean, we do it all the time. It's, you know, it's the model we have, but changing that model to include folks at all your facilities. You'll find that all of a sudden now that participation level, and there is an element to older active adults that, you know, they have discretionary money. They're just looking for something to do, but they're probably going somewhere else to do it.
All right. So
So you're good? You don't need anything more from us?
No, just if you hear anything from the community about the plan or anything, relay it to Colby, and when we send him the draft and he shares it with you, please do read it and give us your feedback.
All right.
you think that the social pinpoint site will open back up?
It's gonna open back up with an emphasis just on trails. And we're meeting next week with the individual that's gonna help us to get all that to happen. And our goal is to have it up and running and ready to go before the 29th, when we do the engagement for the trails.
Perfect. I believe that wraps up our presentation.
We want to take a short break, let these guys get out of here before we One of the last couple of quick items.
Yes, we just wanted to thank you and that for hospitality. Thank you guys for wonderful. You gave us space when we needed it. You provided staff, you were here. I just got an email from some client I'm working with tomorrow morning. There's a meeting specific for what he requested us to do, and he just sent me an email since he's got a meeting of 45 minutes late if he shows up. The whole reason we're doing the meeting tomorrow is you haven't done that to us. You guys have shown up. You arranged for all of the maintenance people to be available. You arranged for, I'm not gonna say it right,
Zena.
Zena.
Zena's helped
Zena.
us. Really, really.
The staff at the desk have been great, so thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
It's not always the case.
And your team over at Skyview last night. The young ladies working in the front desk were very helpful.
For the feedback on that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take a break and then we'll move on. Thank you. Jeff,
Thank you, gentlemen.
take your drive.
Oh. I don't have to come back. I can't win, yeah.
I've learned apparently you need stuff everywhere.
And I'd forgotten, I would have walked out, but that's okay. So I'm just trying to come back.
Thank you, gentlemen. I'm sorry it's been a little chilly for us, but I'm sure you're probably fine with our weather.
I'd rather stay here than go warm.
Going back there, it's been a little chilly.
I've got snow. I got 10 more inches coming tonight, tomorrow, 9 degrees.
That's
Coming up in Portland, absolutely.
And of course, us with our thin California blood, we're like,
It's 65.
One layer. They got a layer.
yeah,
Thanks, guys.
Thank
Have a
you.
good evening.
Guys.
thank you. And safe trip home.
Yeah, but it is, especially in Beaverton. She's gonna get it.
Yeah.
Tom, where do you have to go?
I go to Virginia.
So you're gonna be
It's
tomorrow? It's gonna be chilly there too.
But I get on a plane at 4 tomorrow and I get home about 11:30.
Snow.
Oh,
It's been raining so much, it's been snowing then.
it's been snowing there.
Yeah.
A little bit.
The teams.
I come back next week. I'm gonna be in San Francisco one day.
So
Oh,
that's why I am hustling tomorrow to.
literally
if
San
they-
Francisco?
If they change.
Stanford University.
Oh,
Yeah. Well,
Just for go back from Tuesday. Have a great night. Thank you, everybody.
nice.
Colby will be in touch. I'll get you the atlas too.
Thank you.
Take care.
Carol too. Did you see that after they moved to the front office and they fired him? That's so messed up.
Who's
It
that?
wasn't his fault. They gave him crap to work with.
No, that admit, players win, coaches lose.
Oh.
It's not right. It's just the way it is.
Pins and needles to see who gets hired for the Raiders. Now, now Belichick's in the mix.
Oh, good. Well, then I'll check it. And then
It's gonna be interesting.
you're,
All right.
I'm surprised he hasn't just retired. I've just got enough money and enough everything.
He just likes it.
I always thought Rogers should just hang it up too.
How can you tell that Belichick likes it? He's never smiled in his whole life.
You see though today for his press conference, he wore a tie?
We did?
Did he really?
The cutoff that he.
He had a tie on today.
Did he smile?
I don't know if he is capable of that.
Yeah.
What is that noise?
Make yourself up.
Oh, okay.
I put around my arm.
outside.
Yeah, what is?
Yeah.
Why? I'm gonna worry about Mr. Lazy to come back and
I like those names.
I'm gonna go after Russ.
Recreation, okay. Recreation.
there's another one.
Oh,
Yeah, just go through the door. Yeah, those are very common.
Names.
Give us some really good discussions with.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ready for the latest dad's joke?
Yeah, it's your dad joke, Bob.
I went to McDonald's today and I ate a kid's meal and the mother got really upset.
Oh, terrible.
I appreciate that joke.
Thank you. Yeah, that's not look like she's pushed out. It was good. So February, what is the date? Oh, no, it's gonna be about there because they're.
Mom, I don't think you heard, but Loretta had a second grandchild now.
C-section, she gets breech right now and
Oh, really?
maybe don't want to get too big. Because I won't-
Loretta.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Bob. We have a grandson now, so he's 6 pounds, 5 ounces, 19 inches, a great little size, little guy, healthy, mom's doing good, so. Very excited. His big sister is very excited.
Grandparenting is very fun. Much
Yes,
better,
it is.
much better than parenting.
So much fun.
He was expecting her first grandchild, into the month.
Anytime. Could be as early as Monday, could be a little later.
Where is our mom and dad?
Oh, they're in Orange. They're just over in Orange.
Okay.
It's just, she's got various things going on, and so they've decided it's coming earlier for whatever reason. It's breech, it's getting big, so it's coming early. It was due February 2nd.
Just
It's a he.
It's a he, sorry. He was due February 2nd.
And he's gonna.
It just doesn't, it seems still not
I know.
real.
She's close enough. She's like 35 weeks then.
Oh, yes, yes. It was, yeah, so I'm just more concerned about it getting safely,
Yeah.
I get it.
everything
Yes.
safely
I know.
done, and then I'll be jumping for joy. But right now, of course, it's my baby girl that's going through the,
Yeah, that's true. I spent the morning at our kid's house building a slide and basketball hoop for our 2-year-old.
oh, there we go.
Oh, good. Such a good grandpa. Excellent.
Yeah, we're going Sunday to their house. Can you get past me?
Yep.
And we're building a crib and a chest of drawers with the changing table thing on top,
Yeah.
and getting all the clothes washed and dried by the little, what is it, Peppy, the pink top little, I don't know what it's called, soap, the special soap. for
Yeah,
the
draft or whatever.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what we're doing on Sunday. So yeah. Just thought I'd give him a break. My son-in-law just finished painting the baby's room because they only moved November 11th. I know. So anyway,
All right.
you ready to go?
Yep, we'll resume our meeting. We'll move on to item 5.2, review of district bylaws.
Yes, this is a annual discussion we have. In our bylaws, it says that we'll review them annually every January. So this is something for the board's discretion. We did review them last in 2022. We did a pretty thorough review at that point. It was adopted in July of 22, so they're about 18 months old at this point. So the board kind of has 3 options. We can bring them back and review them as a workshop as a whole. If there's, maybe minor changes that you feel need to be made, we can appoint an ad hoc committee if you want a more thorough review, or we can simply say there's nothing needed at this point. So I'm just looking for some guidance and what it is the board feels or desires to do at this point.
Does the board have any thoughts on this?
That's just a really good question.
Well, I myself would like to review only because from year to year, I've grown a little bit more in informing myself more. So there may not be any changes that I would like to review as a workshop.
Yeah, maybe it comes out of the workshop that we need an ad hoc committee. Not saying we should completely close the door on that, but yeah, I think probably we need.
In the past, it's always been done as an ad hoc committee first, and then it goes to the board for.
I thought we did the workshop first and then we ended up having to do that.
I think what we did last time was we had the workshop back in 2022. And it was decided, there's more than we anticipated and we need to form an ad hoc and give this guidance.
I guess it was the time before that we did that.
Yeah.
Yes, it was the time before that. So I think as Fern requested, I think, or mentioned, yeah, I think doing a workshop and then we'll go from there. You'll let us know, like, if any changes have been made due to
Any laws,
No.
correct. At this point, nothing of that would be major, I think, at this point. I think the only thing we'd ask is I'll make sure I get you all an updated copy, the most current copy ahead of time, because it is a larger document to review,
Yes.
more than just that 72 hours. 'Cause it's, other than that, we can look at getting on the schedule here over the next
I
couple.
think all the members of the board should have an updated copy
Correct.
anyway, so regardless.
Perfect.
So we'll do that.
All right, and I'll work with, Mr. President to get that scheduled over the next couple meetings here.
Perfect.
I do want to say, maybe we even did it in 2 sections. Because it is a lot to cover. I'll look back at past agendas and see how we approached it.
I don't remember
Yeah.
that part, but
All right.
That was somewhere.
The next is item 5.3, approval of the 2024 regular board meeting schedule.
This is something we kind of started doing last year. It's a very common thing. Just approving our schedule for the year. Historically, we don't have a meeting, the second meeting in November because it's Thanksgiving. And we haven't had one the second meeting in December because it usually falls between the Christmas and New Year holiday. But this last year, we also took off the second meeting in July. I have it proposed that way. Coming forward, the only thing I just want to add to this that we realized since we published this, May 23rd, which is the second meeting in May, also coincides with the CARPD annual conference. So I don't know if that's something the board wants to consider. We potentially just reschedule a meeting instead of canceling it. There is the opportunity to have a meeting the 30th of May, because there's 5 Thursdays that month. That would be the only other thing that came up, so.
can we do that on this schedule? Like we could reschedule the 23rd to
Yeah.
the 30th, and well, I think we should go ahead and do that. Because it's been an issue in the past.
Yeah.
So May
I also
30th.
noticed you did put the 25th date on.
Yeah, I
this.
thought you said.
Yeah, it is on there, but I just want to make, I didn't want to make any assumption that you did not want to bring that back. But I think everybody kind of enjoyed that little summer break there.
Well, do we want to leave it there in case we need it? And
Well, I
we
think
can always
that's exactly
cancel
what we
it.
did last year. We reserved the right to hold a special meeting even at a different date should we need it for anything that was pending.
And so does the board want that off? Or do we just want to leave it there and then we can always?
We can leave it, make a decision and see how things are going, because isn't that going to correspond to bouts when the general plan is going to be?
Well, potentially.
So we may decide we want to keep it just because of the timeline with the general plan.
That's a good point. Mhm.
I agree. Yeah, for this year, I think that makes sense.
Okay, yeah.
I did like last year that specific date was taken off. But we can revisit it if we get closer to it.
And then the nice thing is we are gonna know not a week or two, we're gonna know a month in advance because our consultants, need to make travel plans and stuff. So we'll be able to get
Right, I was
that.
just going by the
Yeah.
conversation tonight. It seems like
No.
that was right about when they were saying
Yeah.
we were going to be coming up with the finalization of that, so.
Right.
We'll probably have by early May, a much better timeline of what meeting would be effective.
Yeah, I just think we should play that by ear for now.
I agree.
Perfectly fine.
So are we moving the 23rd to something?
To May 30th.
Do we need to make a motion to do that?
Correct.
I move the board of directors approve the regular board meeting schedule for 2024 with the change of May 23rd being May 30th for our regular meeting.
I'll second that.
All approved?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right. Motion passes 5-0.
Colby, I cannot see it here, but I assume you have dates through the end of the year.
Correct, yes.
I only see September at the bottom.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Good deal.
I'll make sure I send these over to you, Bob.
No, I just making sure it's there.
Item 6, 6.1, general manager's report.
Yeah, just a couple things I want to update the board on. This past weekend was our snow day out at Vernola. It was a great turnout. We did sell out. Ended up being an absolutely beautiful day. For those who didn't able to stop by, we do appreciate it as always. So we had a great turnout, a lot of positive comments. This Saturday is our first youth basketball game of the season out at Avalon Gym. Starts at 9 a.m. So please feel free to stop by and check out some great activity there as well. Other than that, we're moving in on completion of our upcoming recreation brochure. So that'll be going out, scheduled to hit the houses the first week of March. We're really striving to get that out there earlier. It covers our summer activities, which is typically our biggest activity time of the year. Other than that, we've really been focused, this week with the master plan. It's great to be able to spend some time with our consultants there. They bring such a wealth of knowledge. And we were able to have a very productive staff meeting today as part of the vision. It's really more of a buy-in from staff to buy into this document, the process that we're doing, having everybody feel that they're part of it. It's not just something that myself is doing with Loretta, maybe Zena and Kurt and the board. So that was a very productive meeting that we had today, and a lot of really good ideas that came out of that. So we're really excited. And then even with them spending time with the maintenance guys, they were very apprehensive. We told them, hey, some of you guys are going to be having a tag along this next week, for a couple hours throughout the day. And we actually had to call one of our maintenance guys, Dwayne Whitney. He had Jeff with him. Jeff wasn't answering his cell phone. And hey, where you guys at? Jeff's out picking up trash for me. Well, you got to bring him back. No, I don't want it. I'm going to keep him. So the staff really right. They're not there to critique them and judge them. It's really, they're there to provide assistance and examples and improve things going forward. So that was a great experience, I think, for our staff this week. So I'm really thankful that the board has awarded this opportunities to us. I'm excited for the document that's coming up. There was a lot of good information that's been shared. I read through it over the past couple of days and last week, and it was really a data overload. There's so much information that's going to be available to us. Director Gonita, asking great questions there, regarding rates and fees and possible increases based on anything within the database, and it's going to be available. So it may not necessarily come out in our report, but when we come back, we have that data, we can get that down the road. So it's going to be a huge tool for us going forward. So really excited about that. Otherwise than that, we're just chugging along here. Kurt comes in every time that's raining. So excited that it's rained. We just haven't got enough yet. It's always something, we put that, we budget where we need to. And, the longtime joke is, I had a director years ago, we do our budgets, budget where we need to, and we'll make it up in water. Make sure recreation, we're learning some rain dances or something, because we may need it down the road. Water is our biggest commodity besides labor. And I think we're all aware that lives in JCSD's district. There's proposed water rate increases coming. So something we have to budget for. So it's I guess we can add to that everything. Everybody's, as they say, got to live, die, and pay taxes or something, and water increases need to be added to that one, I think. But we're prepared for that, and just kind of add to this. We're going to be coming into the budgetary season here pretty soon. In the moment, President Castellano is going to be updating some committees. I'd like to get a budget personnel committee scheduled.
You said Youth Festival started at 9 a.m. and goes to when?
Last game starts at 3 o'clock.
Okay.
But anything before about 1:30 will be a lot busier and slows down in the afternoon.
Okay.
That's when the older kids come up.
All right, next we'll move to item 6.2, board comments. Ms. Johnson?
Yes, I did visit Snow Day. I admit it. I did not walk over all the way to Snow Day, but I did observe it. I saw that I think we decided to cut back a little bit on the extraneous activities that go with Snow Day. Didn't have a bunch of back booths like we've had, didn't have a whole line of bouncers. And to be perfectly honest, I think that's okay, because I don't think people are coming to stay for the day. They're just coming.
And part of it too was the rain we experienced that week. We were very nervous about getting vehicles down on the grass because it was very soft.
But people seem fine with the way it was. Yeah, it looked like it was a very fun event, and yeah, it was good. Trying to think. I think that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Godinez.
Yes, I'm excited to be back this year. Thank you to Tom, Jeff, and Pat for coming out, and working so diligently, and really immersing themselves in the community, and not, not just owning it in, and that's what we'd hope for, and it sounds like they're doing a great job, and yeah, this is exciting this year to finally get our master plan out, and I'm looking forward to working with everyone on having this be a success.
Thank you. Mrs. Byrne?
I guess I too, as I made mention to them, that there was just so much information and so much footwork done for us that certainly, as I see it, a punch list. And to Kim's comment, you know, let's work on the ones that we need to work on first. I'm excited about that. So all in all, it was very, very informative. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Lejeune?
You know, I dropped by snow day as well. And I too did not walk all the way out there, partly because I'm in the boot and it's a little difficult to walk out across the grass. I will say that talking with the Lions doing the pancake breakfast, we kind of wonder now why we weren't using the snack bar all along. It really is a lot better, especially when it's really cold in the morning. So I'm glad that the decision was made to use the snack bar as the base for that. It seemed like everybody was enjoying themselves and having a good time. I think maybe a few more tables around the snack bar might be good for next year for people to sit. It looked like there wasn't as many people, but I think without, to Kim's point, all the extra things to do, I think people were going to their times and leaving. So it just, I know we sold out, so there was the same amount of people. It just didn't look as crowded.
Actually more, but yeah.
Yeah, it just didn't look as crowded, but it was a good event. I was very happy with the master plan meeting last night. At Skyview, it was a lot more people than I actually expected. And I was happy to see that we did have a much better turnout. And I'm also looking forward to continuing on and completing that process this year.
Yes.
Great, thank you. As for myself, yeah, I think the meeting yesterday went great. We had a pretty good turnout. And then for
27 people, yeah.
Skills.
Thanks for this new zero, so that was fantastic.
Yeah, and today as well, I think it was a good productive conversation today. I think this really gets the year taken off for us as a district. So really glad the effort that Barry Dunn has put into this master plan, and I think this seems maybe like it's the first half of it. So looking for the second half of this.
Yeah, we're about midway, I would say, yeah.
Yeah, second half of this whole project going on. Looking forward to what this year has in store for the district. I think it's coming along for us. And that's it for me. Any committee reports?
No, we don't have any yet.
That's right. Item 7, committee meetings.
That was your hand. Your
You're supposed to bring
your
up.
your committees.
Okay, so that was, that's for us.
Yeah, that was your hand.
So, yeah, so report on that, or?
Yeah, just you hand them out, yeah.
Yeah, so I handed out the committee assignments. As you can see, so
We'll get you a new one. It should say 2024 at the top.
Oh, I see.
I saved it on the tab, but not on the header.
I'll change that to 24. We'll get you a new one.
Thank you.
So then we just need to schedule a meeting for the budget. personnel.
Yeah, I'll work with the members of the budget personnel committee about getting that set up.
okay,
And we have one of the big things Loretta's been working on is update to our employees now.
We always have a draft ready to be reviewed. It's been several years, that's time to update.
all right. So that'll be the budget and personnel distributed and
It'll come to the full board.
Yeah, we have committee.
okay. So future agenda items, anyone wants to? No? So we have our upcoming meetings, January 25th and February 8th. Or anything else, I believe that concludes our meeting. So we'll conclude our meeting at 8:25.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
You're muted, Bob. I couldn't hear you. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night. You're trying to get it.